This conference will now be recorded.
Discovery Church is here. The church here. Okay, it's now 6:30 and I'll call this town council meeting to order. We will have the invocation from Jamie Lampert from the Discovery Church.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we love you tonight and thank you, Lord. Thank you for your mercy and your grace. And Lord, just thank you, Lord, for this body's willingness to keep prayer here. I think it's really important, Lord. We just thank you for that, Lord. I ask you to touch each council member, Lord. Thank you for the calling on their heart to serve. And Lord, just direct them, Lord, touch their families, keep them safe and healthy. And Lord, touch this meeting tonight. Let it ultimately be for your glory, Lord. We just commit that to you. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, there will be no public hearing tonight, and I will now accept motions relating to the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove the executive session. We've asked several times that we be updated ahead of time, and I don't know what we're doing, so I'd just like to delete it till we can tell us all what's going on.
I second.
I was actually asking that we remove that. The issue that I had is gone, so there's no reason to have it.
Okay.
All right.
Is there any discussion on that before we vote on it? All right, Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Holder?
Yes.
Keating?
Yes.
Cracklaw?
Yes.
Kinkin?
Yes.
Drake?
Yes.
And myself is yes, so the executive session will come off of the agenda. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the minutes approval, and these are minutes for September 12th, 2022 workshop meeting and September 13th, 2022 regular meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from September 12th and September 13th of 22. Workshop and regular meeting.
A second.
Okay, is there any discussion before we vote on that? Mr. Stamey?
Yes.
Holder?
Yes.
Keating?
Yes.
Cracklaw?
Yes.
Kinkin?
Yes.
Drake?
Yes.
And myself is yes, so that the minutes passed. The next thing is public comments, and these are public comments relating to agenda items only. Good evening.
Gary White, 315 D Lakeside Drive. I think speaking from a citizen, okay, and not any committee member there. About the parking management contract. What I'm interested in is, it says the parking management contract. Under the scope, it mentions parking permit program. Does this mean that the booth stickers that we have will be controlled by pivot parking tickets? Pivot parking tickets. In the future. And the other question is, where is the pivot parking located? Is it located here in town or off-site or somewhere? And the last question will be, where does the resident get them if we keep them from the town hall? Do they still get it from the town hall? So if you can address this somehow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe you can address that later on in the agenda. Okay. Are there any other public comments? All right, moving right along. The next thing is Lanier's monthly report by Steve Robinson.
He's not here, but that's okay because I have a hard copy of his report and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
We'll start with the 2022 August budget. It was budgeted that we would have 58,600 in parking revenue and 6,400 in violation revenue, and that would have been a total of $65,052.31. In actual fact, we had parking revenue of $74,016.79 and violation revenue of $2,960, which gives us a total of $76,976.79. So that's a $11,900 increase to what we budgeted. And if you compare that with last year, and last year total was $70,303.62. So we're actually 9% higher, which is $6,663.17. The average for the last 5 years in August has been $64,200. So we are above the last 5-year average. Just a quick breakdown of it. Text to Park revenue was $16,982. Park Mobile was $7,991. And pay stations was $49,043.74, which gives you that total of $74,016.79. This is 13,501 transactions, and average transaction was, where's that at? Average per transaction is $5.48. And if you compare that with last year, it was $5 or revenue was $5.57. There's no real comparison. If you go to the final page of this, this is January through August comparison, 2021 versus 2022. Total revenue in 2021 was, at this time, was $370,159.53. And total revenue up to now this year is $410,080 and a penny. And so the variance is $39,920.48. So all in all, we're having a very good year with parking.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Shanahan about the parking?
I do, Mayor.
Go ahead.
If, how much, can you tell us how much it's contributed to the parking that we do on the crossovers now? How much it breaks down to, it's paid, how much that's making? Where we have the crossovers, we took that in this year, the walkovers, the crossovers, where we got parking for that. Does that?
Oh, the addition.
Are you talking about the golf beach parking?
Yeah.
Yes,
That's right down here on
I'm
page
sorry.
2 on the very bottom.
Yeah,
on page 2.
yeah. Paul,
$7,100 in August.
okay, yeah.
Golf cart parking,
Yeah,
access
I'm
to the
sorry.
beach. Okay. I just didn't hear that part of it, and I was wondering.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that. I was just
Okay,
doing total
that's
stuff.
fine.
Not done it.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Shanahan.
You're welcome, sir.
Next thing is the Planning, Building, and Zoning Report by Director Adair. Good evening.
Good afternoon, good evening, Mayor, Council, and citizens. In the business report, new construction, home and steady, once again at 9 new single-family residence. Permits issued from June to September of this year. That's exactly the same number issued during the same period last year. Shown on the charts attached to your report, permit fees have increased along with the number of inspections per month. Code enforcement decreased in September due to increase in staff office time. All staff members are cross-trained to assist in areas where needed. The code enforcement officer has found in the last 3 months through various websites and social media posts over a dozen short-term rentals being advertised and rented outside of the transit rental zones in the town. After diligent follow-through, all listings, with the exception of one, have been removed from websites and social media and have ceased operations. Mark your calendars. The town's comprehensive plan rewrite consultants have begun gathering information from the town. The staff has been in contact and will continue to be in close contact throughout the process with biweekly calls and Zoom meetings. A comprehensive plan kickoff is currently scheduled for Tuesday, December 6th, and they wanted to give you ample time to go ahead and put it on your schedules. December 6th, 2022. During this day, it's going to be an all-day and evening event. The consultants will meet with the Planning Commission, Town Council, staff, and residents to get input on the town's future. They may make it a 2-day event, and we'll certainly be advertising with much more to come on the event on our town webpage and our Facebook page, and we'll have flyers out. Below, which is in your packet, are the comparisons for the last quarter for your review, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have on those at this time.
Mr. Mayor, you said that the building, you had 9 homes last year, 9 again this year. On the number of lots still available, do you have a number on that? Or are these total tear downs or just vacant lots being built on?
No, they're not vacant lots. It's about half and half. They have in the R3 zone, they're buying the older lots, older homes, tearing them down and splitting the lots in two.
Oh, okay.
So the lots are that I gave out a few months ago. I think I gave it to all of council. Those lots, that number is pretty much still the same.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from Director Adair? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next thing will be the finance report by Director King.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. This would be the report for the town for the month of August. General fund revenue is $440,000, while the expenditures are $1.234 million. These are months that we don't collect a lot of money because October is when the tax bills go out from the county. This is the month that we're really not collecting much of anything except permit fees. In August, there were 27 new business license accounts opened. 3 were new businesses that came to town. 3 were new rentals. 11 were new contractors, and there were 10 of out-of-town businesses that wish to do business in the town of Surfside Beach. Special revenue funds, accommodations, hospitality, and local A-tax will receive the next month check from the state for the state A-tax in October, probably late October, and that will cover the months July, August, and September. Hospitality collections are $574,000 and $158,000 year to date, which are pretty comparable. The capital projects fund had no expenditures in August. The stormwater utility fund is continuing engineering work on the second phase of the drainage project. The pier fund, the summary is attached, which we'll go over in a minute. Sanitation fund revenue from sanitation totaled $345,000 and expenditures of $205,000, and that's pretty well just about on track for prior years. Parking is doing extremely well. The net revenue exceeds last year by $9,000. I have other things in my net number that is not in the linear report, so I can't, they're not apples and oranges. They're not apples and apples. On the peer report, which is on the next page, I have updated it based on the information that I received from Consensus this week. But we got more information this morning that is not on here. Tuesday meetings, we continue to get them some more information. What I would say, that we paid Lanier this month $724,000. So far, we paid them $465,000. Sorry. So we paid them to date $11,198,588, which is like the third line on the report. If you go down this column on the left, the total cost that we have paid out to date is $13,448,853. We are topped out with our grant from FEMA. They do owe us $197,000. we put in for all the reimbursements we can get. If you look underneath that, what we expect to get money in is the 9 million from FEMA, the 5 million for the bond, 5 million from other funds. PRT, we're going to get 4 million. I mean, pond proceeds are 4 million. Sorry about that. PRT grant is 500,000 plus another million. So the total we would expect to get in is 20,546,000. If you get in the next section, it's the total project's cost projected. And if you go all the way down to the right, consensus has some more things they're adding to this. But the consensus bill, based on what I know at the moment, would be 15,787,870, which would include the insurance, which is not really a cost of the pier, into the pier itself. And if you go down, continuing in that column with the things we project, the inspectors, Grand Strand Water, Collins, parking lot, contingency, we expect that the total estimated cost would be $19,016,000. If we add in the retainage, which we would have to pay before everything was clear, it would be $19,347,626 for the construction of the pier. And there's want to add into the debt, and that we also have to do a payoff between now and then just on the regular interest payments. So the total would be $23,904,000. And obviously that changes all the time. This is just the estimate that I have at this time. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, adding back in the retainage, that's kind of like double counting, because we hold back a certain percentage from each payment to consensus, but under the total cost values from their proposal values and so forth, that's 100% of what we would owe them. So adding back what we're withholding from their individual payments would be double counting on the total cost side.
Okay.
So I don't think it's valid to add the 331 in at the end.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, you're all set?
No.
Are you going through the rest of it?
Oh, you want to go through the rest of the pages? Oh, all right. I guess we could do that.
Jesus.
I'm sorry. I'm kind of in another world here. Okay, so for general fund, Horry County sends out its tax bills at the end of October. License and permit fees are up 20,000. Police fines are up 20 from the prior year. And we're on number 4 on that report. We sold the tractor for 15 grand this month.
Sold it for how much? Excuse me.
15.
$15,099.
Mm-hmm. The expenditures for each of the departments are there listed, and the expenditures so far this year are $1,234,000 for 2 months. So the net for the general fund is $794,000 in the hole, less than revenue. That should change when we start getting in the tax revenue, which probably is November, December. We have 1 more month where it's going to be short, probably. Sanitation revenue is up by 15 for a net of $140,000 to the plus. On the pier, we got revenue from interest. The fishing pier license was applied for and received. And the other item on there is legal work for the rentals for a net of $259 negative. Accommodations PACS has nothing going on with a net negative of $34,000. So we made the payment for the state will not be received until probably the end of October. The hospitality fund is doing better than ever. The revenue is up $60,000 more than last year. The restrooms at Children's Park, all Children's Park, which came in this year, were budgeted last year, so that will be a budget amendment that will have to be done later on. And the number 3 one is for from engineering that we're doing for I believe on the beach. Local accommodations revenue exceeds prior year by $24,000. Between the two of them, what we're collecting between ourselves and Horry County is extremely more than I expected. Stormwater fund, We have a net loss of 26,000. We are not, none of that money will come in now again until the tax bills go out. And we did some little engineering on the drainage project for a net of $26,000 in the hole. The capital projects fund, where is only income we have is from revenue, from interest at the moment. This county is supposed to be starting to send us some money. We paid out 6,000. No, so we had net loss of 6,664. The only interest thing is the interest on the account of $6,000. Does anybody have any questions now?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
Ms. King, what tractor was sold? Just tractor sold. What kind of tractor? And who sold it?
Public Works did. I don't really know.
You know, if it's sold on gov.
It was the government on Gov Deals.
It was done on gov deals?
If you go out there, you can pull it up what it was.
So John would know about it?
I don't think it. Oh yeah, John's one who puts it on there.
All right, just want to make sure.
I think it was the beach, Michael, I think it was the beach backhoe.
If it was a
Wasn't that
backhoe,
what we were selling the last time?
and how old was it? And I know it's been near to salt and all the good stuff and all that great
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't
But
know.
for 15 grand,
Later. Well,
Say that again?
Probably.
you know how much a backhoe is?
Brand new one.
90.
Yeah.
Brand new one's a lot
90,
of money.
right? How old was
Well,
it?
the one we're buying is 90,
How
so
old was it? 40?
I
Four
don't-
years, 5 years old?
I don't know.
Yeah, but it's been
I
I'd recommend we get
on
somebody
the
else.
ocean digging up salt water.
You,
when
that's
I-
only one thing in this world that's corrosive.
I can tell you, when I first got here, I spoke with John about capital improvement vehicles, and on the backhoe on the beach, it's based on what we can get now versus what we can get next year,
Yeah.
based on the salt, the water,
Right.
the wind, all that stuff you said. And so what they try to do is use it as long as you can, but not kill the value. So at the end of it, you get nothing. And they've been doing this for a couple of years, and the process seems to be working.
Reason I asked that question, I sold a 75 backhoe, 1975 Ford backhoe for $13,000 last month.
Wow.
I don't know if that's what that was or not.
But it wasn't used on the ocean, was it?
It was used in chicken houses. How much more corrosive could that be?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm thinking, wow, that's
I don't think it's the backhoe. I think it's.
if it's the
I think it's-
backhoe. I'm just.
I think it's a tractor that we use, the lawn tractors. One of the big ones. That's
Oh.
what I think it is.
I just
We
think
can
we need
find
to.
that out.
We need to look at that a little bit. I think some of the
Yes, sir.
equipment that we get rid of. If Gov Deals ain't getting nothing for it, I can recommend quite a few auction sites to send stuff to and equipment.
Honestly, be willing to look at any of them. We can get a better deal than Gov's deal.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Thank you.
Well, when we talked about it before, we talked about going to gov dot whatever,
Yeah,
you
Gov
know,
Deals.
Yes,
to
sir.
do it because of the transparency in it, so that, you know, everybody sees that you have it, everybody has a chance to bid on it. It wasn't like you sold it to somebody you knew. So if it went through a program like that, it's the best we're gonna get.
Well, any auction company could do the same thing. So if they want to use Gov Deals, that's fine, but I just think that they need to look at what they're selling. They can do a quick comparisons of what has sold in the past, just to get you an idea of what the unit you're going to get rid of, what it's going to bring.
Doesn't hurt.
Well, that's
You know?
something we can look into.
Okay.
Mhm.
Anybody, any more questions?
All right, I'll turn it over to him.
Well, we're gonna need you to stay because the,
I'm gonna
he's
start it.
gonna do it?
I'm gonna start it, and she's gonna answer all the hard questions.
okay. So, the next thing is placement of the American Rescue Fund.
Mhm. Yeah, this discussion again is what, to decide where we leave the American Rescue money that we have at this time. And just so you know, currently the American Rescue money is totally unrestricted fund, so it's not designated for anything, and we can use it how we feel fit as long as it benefits the community, the town. And you can't use for parties, but other than that, we're pretty good. Right now, it's in the capital improvements fund, and it can't be spent unless you guys approve it, just so you know. So it is locked in there. It was approved during the budget, so it would take 2 public readings to make it move. In addition, when this budget for the pier was put together, we didn't have state monies of 1.5 million or the American Rescue monies. The 1.5 million, just so you know, 500,000 of it we already have, and using that to assist us when we're paying the change orders, because that's what we told them we'd use it for. And we got the paperwork in the other day for the $1 million, and we're putting that together. We had to wait till our audit was completed, and we got notified that was done today, and that'll be on the first agenda in October. And good news on that. The way it was set up originally, staff feels that we have the current fundings needed without the American Rescue money to pay for the pier and the bond in 2028, as long as we manage it correctly. That does not mean we spend this American Rescue Fund. That means I would recommend that we look at it in January, and because we do have some change orders coming in from our contractor, and I don't want to do anything that would put us in danger with the pier. But currently with the pier, if you look at our 2022 funds, we brought in a total of $18,936,221. And up to now, we have actually spent $12,978,419.76. So we have remaining from 2022 is $5,957,801. In addition to that, we expect in 2023, if you just look at the A tax, hotel tax, or hospitality tax, and your local A tax, we expect to bring in another $600,000 that we can put towards the pier, which will give us total funds at $19,546,000 and give us a cash balance remaining of $6,567,000. And that doesn't count the $1 million for the money from the state. So there's nothing that says it has to stay there, and there's nothing that says we don't have to put it someplace else. But again, my recommendation after talking to staff or finance is that if we leave it there till January, nobody touches it, we bring it back up, we know exactly how much money we've got, we know how close we are to the end of the pier being finished. We also know if we're going to have more change orders that we have to deal with, and then we can do with it as we need to do. Under no circumstances would I recommend spending it on anything else at any time soon. That's about all I have to help you all.
Okay.
Any questions from
Yeah,
council?
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes, sir.
on this money that we've got in this account, if we transfer it over to the pier fund, if that was what council decided to do, how would that money be distributed out once it's put in there? We can't touch it for nothing else, right? We couldn't go back and pull it back out of the pier fund and use it for paving a road down here or something if we needed it. We can't go back and pull that money from any other account if we place it there, can we?
My understanding, we could not use it for anything once it goes in, but I'm gonna let Diana verify that because she is my expert on that.
Okay.
This money is strictly unencumbered money right now. As soon as you move it to the pier and we tell the federal government that that's what we're going to do with it, it goes to the pier. And the pecking order is first you use the FEMA money, then you use the bond, then you use the money from the state, and then you would, right now we're going to use hospitality and A-tax because that's the whole way we got the bond from the bonding company, was to tell them that over the next X number of years, each of those funds would contribute X amount of money to pay the bond. It was totally always to be paid by hospitality tax and A-tax and the pier, which the pier does need to start bringing in some money at some point in time. They were in there to be on the hook for something. And then local hospitality. But you'd have to use it in that pecking order because then it would be encumbered funds. Right now, that American Rescue money is totally unencumbered money. You can do anything in the world you want with it right now.
But the capital improvement funds that were in there, right, that's where the money, the American Rescue is sitting right now, right?
Mhm.
And there are certain things like the demolition of the town hall, which we know has to be done. That's in there.
As an expense. We can, if you decide that's what you're going to do, then we'll find someplace else to do it. I mean,
Where else could we put it?
that would have to go to general fund because you could not
No,
use
it's-
hospitality and ATAX to knock down the buildings.
If it's in the general fund, then you don't need a council vote to use it. Is that true?
I would never recommend
No.
that when it's $100,000. No.
No, I would not let that happen,
We
sir.
would
I'm
still
not
run it by
spending
you.
money you all don't know about.
Well, but we can also use the American Rescue funds to pay the bills that come in for the pier instead of drawing down on the bond. The bond is already located in the pier fund.
We have to use the bond first. It's encumbered for the pier.
Where is
For the
that?
buildings, correct?
It's encumbered for the pier because it was given to us for the pier and it has to be used for that first.
So the American
That's
Rescue
true.
money would be the last pick in order of the pier money. If we put it there, it would sit there for 4 years or 3 years or whenever we decided to pay off the pier, then we could use it then. But it'd have to sit there with nobody using it or no way of getting to it once it goes there.
You'd have to put it in the pecking order behind the state bond, and then hospitality and ATAX would go to the bottom. Because that would be what we would tell the government that you were using it for the pier, so it would have to be used.
Had to be used in that order. And we can't go back and get it and put it back in no other account.
Well, if you got to the very end and you hadn't used it, you might be able to move it back. We'd have to go see what the government rules are on that. But you don't have to decide what you're going to use this for until 2024. So in my opinion, it would be better not to say you're going to use it for anything today. Maybe in January you know better, and then you commit yourself to it when you know more about it,
Thanks.
what's going on. That's
Thanks,
just
Di.
my opinion.
Other than the general fund, where else could it go?
Where could what go?
The American Rescue money.
It's not going to go to the general fund. That's why it's in the capital projects.
Right. Well, I'm saying that, but
So-
We just brought it out of.
Well, we're bringing it to the pier fund is where we're going, apparently. Is that where we're going?
No.
He's asking, where
I'm
could you
asking
put
for an
it other
alternative
than
to
the
the
pier
pier
fund?
fund and the general fund.
So why not leave it right in the capital projects fund, which doesn't do you any harm at all?
But
Which
that's-
not putting it in the general fund keeps it out of the regular operation of the government, which is salaries, or we want to give everybody a raise or whatever, and that money would get mingled. Leaving in capital projects fund, it's there by itself with just the money that comes in for road fees. There's nearly nothing else in that fund, so it would just sit there until you said, yes, spend it. We have this use we want to use for it, which we would tell the government, or it's in a safer place than putting it in general fund,
But you
in my
could,
opinion.
but you could put it there if you needed to.
You could, but if you did, it would probably, I wouldn't suggest that at this, unless you had something knew you were going to use it for.
But you could go and withdraw some out to put it in general fund if we needed to right now, couldn't you? If that's what we needed to
If
use.
you found something you wanted to, yeah.
Yes, we could draw some out and put it in general fund right now if we find something we wanted to do with it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, but the purpose of what we're trying to do is to make sure the pier is paid off and there's no debt hanging over this town.
I understand
And
that,
even though it's over an account, and we're not going to spend it, it'll be there for,
but I understand that. But we have a mechanism in place with hospitality and ATAX to put enough money away each year so that there would be enough money to pay for that. That's the way it was always designed.
Is that with a payoff of 2028?
I can double the payments if that's what you want me to do, and it would be paid off in 2028, barring no tourists not coming or something like that.
well, God forbid that happen.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But you could always go back and get that money if you needed it. But if you put it in the pier fund, that's where it's going to be. Right now, we can get it if we need it for the pier. But if you vote to put it or change your mind and put it in the pier fund, then that's where it's going to be.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I don't think anybody is saying move it out of the protection of the capital fund. We don't want to put it in the general fund where it has a potential of being nickel dimed away for everyday expenses.
Right.
We're not saying put it in the pier fund such that it has a limited application. I think what we're saying is we should be using those funds to offset the cost of the pier such that at the end of the payoff in 2028, we've got about $1.7 million residual principal sitting in the pier fund to do something with that can now be moved out to something else because we've satisfied all the obligations of the pier without expending the entire bond.
The bond is going to be gone at $588,000 from now. That's all we have left.
Well, then we definitely need to be using the American Rescue money.
Well, no, we still have the $1.5 million. I don't think that's true. We still have the money we've put $5 million in the last 3 years in ATAX and hospitality in there, local ATAX, in 3 years.
Well, that's a new piece of information that is contrary to what we were told previously, that the bond hasn't been used yet, but because we've just exhausted the FEMA funds.
Because we have to use the FEMA funds. The pecking order was now changed by the auditors, and that's my fault, but you have to, because of it being encumbered, you have to use it in that order.
But over a short period of time, 3-4 years, we generated $5 million for the pier, and there's no reason we can't generate another $5 million in the next 6 years. Is that correct?
That's my belief.
Yeah. Okay.
That's sort of a woulda, coulda, shoulda.
That's where we're going to end up in 2028. We'll have enough money to pay the balance of the bond off because we can keep setting money aside.
Well, that is the purpose of the tourist funds. That's why you do it that way. It's a tourist attraction that you're building, which is why you use the tourist funds first.
So what is the total of the ARG money that is sitting in the capital fund now?
There's only whatever we got last year, was just $1,039,000 or something like that. The second money hasn't come in yet.
And it's due to be here in October, right?
I haven't heard a word about it, but supposedly. It comes through the municipal association, so. So we don't have it yet. You'd have just short of $2 million, just a little bit over $2 million. And you can't recognize that money until you spend it. So that's one of the other caveats of the government's rules.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to leave.
It's a discussion.
Well, it says a motion right here that you can make on this proposal.
Yeah, but
It says a motion may be made by council.
My fault, sir.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what the paper says.
Yeah.
If it's wrong, it's on this paper wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to make a motion.
They can do it? Okay. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we leave the American Rescue money exactly where it's at for right now.
that doesn't require a motion to take no action.
No.
I'm just scared to leave it there.
I don't know why you'd be scared to leave it there. But and I think the worst the case would be is we get the money in November, hopefully. And then, like I said, he said in December or January, we'll look at where we are with the pier, where we are with the funds, and we can make a decision then.
You ever heard of one bird in the hand's better than two in the bush?
No. I just think you're reacting because it's unrestricted funds. That is a big deal in the accounting world of restricted versus unrestricted. And it's not restricted. So it's restricted right now by all of you because we can't spend it. And that's fine. We don't have anything to spend it on right now.
To hold a range on that.
Well, that's fine.
We don't want the town in debt.
Well, that's what we can't get out of it till 2028. And I do believe we have a plan that we can do that.
And if we do that, and that's great. I look at it as great that we set a plan for that, but to know that if that plan don't work out, it's over there to pay it off. and the residents don't get hit with a big tax increase, like you were talking about last, this coming up budget, 10 mil increase. And then that got kicked down and wiped out. I don't want to see a tax increase on the
Well,
residents of Surfside. I don't think
Mr.
it's
Mayor,
needed.
Go ahead.
I would recommend that, and I don't know that we need a motion at this point, but I would recommend that we leave it in the capital fund because it is somewhat protected there, that we revisit this in January, and in the meantime, we can process whatever, resolution, not necessarily an ordinance, but a resolution that restricts use of the APA funds without certain approvals or whatever, because you need approval to take it out of the capital fund and spend it anyway. And that, it's part of what remains available in an overall accounting, and we document how we are going to pay off this bond in 2028. So that we have that whole roadmap that becomes enforceable to not only this council, but the following council, that's going to be sitting up here in 2028.
Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure I understand why they're so worried about paying off the bond on 2% money, which is almost free. This town's been in debt before. I think we paid off the paving that we had all the roads done, which was, I don't know how many years, but I think it was done in like 2010, 2015, somewhere in there. And we just paid that off. So we have been in debt before. And when you're looking at 2% money, where can you get 2% money? Not anymore. So there's a plan in place and it'll get paid off in 2028, but that's not the end of the world if it doesn't, because it's only, I don't remember the numbers now, I saw maybe $350,000 a year to finish paying it off. But I think, as Diana said, she had a plan in place to pay it off in 2028. And I'm just not that concerned. If we're in debt for a few years beyond that, I'm not that concerned because it's very cheap money.
But it's still money, and it's our job to protect the interest of the residents so that debt doesn't go on to them.
Well, she has a plan, so it doesn't go on.
Well, just because you have a plan doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Okay.
Well, but that's why I recommend memorialize that plan in a resolution, so there's something to point to
Exactly.
to make sure it happens.
Right. At the end of the time, then you release the money, then it goes back to the council decide at that time, okay, now we got this other money here that came off the pier that's been released and it's paid off, and do what you want to with it. But I just don't, just to spend it on something else right now just seems kind of foolish.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
to Mr. Drake's question down there, I hadn't heard anybody say anything about spending it for anything else. But besides that, Diane has just stood right there and told us that she has a plan. There's a plan in place to pay this at that end of the time if we want to set up a double payment on it. They'll have plenty of money there. So why ain't we listening to our finance director instead of us sitting up here trying to make a decision for her? I mean, she's told us that they got a plan. Here we are questioning the plan, and we ain't even in trouble yet. I mean, it's ridiculous to me to where we at on this.
Mr. Mayor, last word on it. I'm not questioning her plan on it in any way. I'm just saying that there's no need to get a plan to spend money that we don't need to spend at this time. We got a big project. We're trying to figure out how we're going to pay it off. And if she's got a great plan to pay it off, that's great. When it's paid off, then we'll do something with it.
Yes, sir. And we have a plan that the police department is in trouble, that we need a police department, and it's going to have to come from somewhere. But some money is going to have to come from that at one time or another. Are we going to go back in debt to get that money?
You're gonna have well, you have the money when it's done. So as soon as it's paid
So in
for.
other words, we're going to wait 7 years.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add my 2 cents worth. I think for right now, leave the money where it's at. But I have a question about the American Rescue Plan money. My understanding is it has to be spent within 2 years, or at least there has to be a plan. Now, if the plan is to put it towards the pier in 2028 and we don't use it, then do we lose it? That's kind of my question, because if that would happen, that'd be a terrible thing to let $2 million just kind of go away.
You will have to spend it by 2026. So we'll need to sit and figure out how much we've used already of all the money we have, how much the bills are, which is why I'm saying wait till January and then see where we are. You can't just put it aside to pay the debt 6 years from now. You can't do that. You've got to actually spend it. That's the government's rules, or they will take it back.
Well, we'll leave it where it is, but
For right now.
January, we gotta make a decision.
Well, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I mean, a lot of things might change between now and January.
I just don't wanna see 10 meals next year, or 20 meals, or something else later on, because, it didn't work out. That's what I don't wanna see.
No, I don't think anybody wants to see that, but prices keep going up. Everything in the general fund is going to start costing more and more. Everybody wants more employees, and everybody wants more benefits, and everybody wants a lot of things. That's what I'm hearing. That has to come. Most of it's got to come from general fund.
We'll have to be wishing this.
Mr.
And
Mayor,
something else.
Mr. Mayor,
That's
Yeah.
not up to me. That's up to all
back
of
to
you.
Mr. Drake's question again. I was in on the budget discussion, and I never heard anybody in this panel say that we was gonna raise by 10 or 20 meals.
10 meals, I said.
It
20
wasn't,
meals, I
it
said
was
it's
not
up.
discussed for 10 meals.
Yes, it was.
Must not been when I was here.
It was mentioned in the budget process.
Budget process, it was mentioned. And I said, no. And then we changed it.
We
10,
discussed
you can't go
3 or
It
2.
couldn't be 10. There's no way we can go up 10 by the law.
That's
That's why it could
exactly
not be
right.
10.
I agree.
I agree.
There's no way it was 10.
You mentioned it, Diane.
No, I didn't say
Point
10.
of order,
no.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Whatever. Whatever. Everybody's got their opinion.
Mr. Mayor, Diana, if I remember right, we can't even raise it next year. We can't raise the mill rate next year because they're being reevaluated the next year.
Mr. Mayor, this is not a topic of the discussion on the agenda. We have to stick to the agenda topics.
Okay.
So to sum up what we're talking, I think that everybody says that they don't have a problem with moving or keeping the money in the capital fund. And January would be the date that we do that. We don't need a vote in order to do that because that's already the plan.
We've already done it.
The only things that would have to be decided would be if I guess you don't have to decide anything. If there were any of the projects in that fund that you wanted to do, we'd have to find a different home for them. That would be the only thing.
But we could do that with a vote in any of the council meetings.
That's
and what
correct.
we're going on. Okay.
It depends on what you want to do.
So are we,
Right, so we're leaving everything the way it is right now until January. That works for me.
thank you. All right, the next thing on the agenda is the parking management contract.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shanahan.
Subject Pivot Parking Agreement approval. Purpose is to direct the town administrator to approve the Pivot Parking Agreement. Some of the facts: the town of Surfside Beach conducted a request for proposal for parking management services, of which Pivot Parking was the staff recommended vendor. Pivot Parking is a regional parking management company having 50 plus years of experience. That's a combination of people, not that they've been in business 50 years. Pivot Parking shall receive a base management fee of $725 per month and an incentive management fee of 6.25% of total revenue collected. Pivot Parking shall, at its sole expense, provide one license plate technology equipment approved by the town. Rough value is about $50,000. Pivot Parking shall provide the scope of services identified in Exhibit A attached, which I gave to all of you. And so, recommendation: direct the town administrator to execute this contract and shall constitute a notice to proceed to the company on October 1, 2022, and to begin services on January 1st, 2023, upon receipt by the town of a fully executed agreement, insurance certificates, and any other documentation required by the town administrator from the company.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to accept the recommendation to direct the town administrator to execute a contract with Pivot Parking for the enforcement services in the coming parking seasons.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion before we do that?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
I have a couple questions.
there's several
Go ahead, Mr.
places
King.
in here it mentions parking meters. And I assume that's the old kind where you put the coins in and turn the knob that we no longer have. You also refer
Still
to pay stations. So I'm thinking the parking meter is the old style, the pay station is what we have now. And if I remember what they said was that some of our pay stations are not in good shape.
Yes, sir, and the plan was over a period of time to move it out, so we eventually end up with pay-to-park services throughout the whole community, but based on what you all said, what we have in place on some of them, we wanted to leave them a little bit, give people time to get used to it. So it would be a program to move forward to that.
Because that's, right now, that by far the pay stations are what people are using
Yes, sir.
by a large percentage. Thank you.
Ms. Keating, go
Yeah.
ahead.
What is the initial term of the contract with Pivot?
That could be what you are. We put it out for 3 years, but I mean, we can do whatever you want.
But that's what they're proposing, a 3-year term
Yes,
as
sir.
well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now, not everybody here was here when Pivot gave us our pitch, when
Yes,
they
sir.
came in and talked to us. But some of the things, and they don't have the answers to the question, the people in attendance tonight was they are a local company. They are in North Myrtle Beach.
Yes, sir.
But they also do Cherry Grove, and they also do some of the other surrounding, including, I think, Myrtle Beach too.
Yes, sir.
I know they do
believe said
North
that.
Myrtle. Yeah, and some in Georgetown. So they are in the area. And it would sort of be like Lanier did before. They would have people on site to issue the thing.
Yeah.
And one of the advantages to this is they have a license plate reader.
Mhm.
So when they go through and they go through a parking lot, it automatically reads the license plate. And it doesn't give them information about who the owner is and who everything else is, but it'll tell them by looking at that license plate whether the people have paid the parking and their parking is up to date there in the town. Now, the question did come about our not our county stickers, our town parking stickers, and the town being able to get that. And they were basically saying that there's two ways to do it. First of all, any resident that has a car here in the town, their license plate will be on file. So when you go and the card reader reads the license plate of a vehicle, a resident's vehicle, it'll show that they're a resident of the town of Surfside and they will not have to pay for parking in certain lots or any that the town can park for in that. The question also came up about golf carts and how they could do that. And they were saying that they've had different ways that different towns wanted to do it, and our town needs to make that decision. One is that in some places of course, your LSV, you don't need to because they already have state license plates. But a regular golf cart, they would what they did in North Myrtle, I think what they did in Cherry Grove is they issued a license plate. It's sort of, it's your own license plate. It's like a Surfside Beach license plate or whatever, and it has a number on it. So when that license plate, and they go and their card reader reads that number, that, it's a valid license plate in the town, and they go like that. So, there's a lot of things that were given to us, information that was given to us about the contract that not everybody here knows. So, it's going to be a learning process for everybody to do
And I
that.
think the other thing is they talked about a premium parking program where they will set it up, and they've done it in other places. And it actually the better the parking space, the little bit higher the price, and you would actually, in other places, it does not reduce the amount of people that park. It actually increases the amount of revenue that comes in, but they'll put that program together and bring it to us to make sure we're on board with it. And it's not all overnight. There's a schedule of events to get there.
Plus, I believe that in the contract that we've been paying, our old parking people administrative fees to do certain things, that those fees are already built into this.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, it is a benefit to the town.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Because the town would, in my opinion, we haven't really voted on it, I guess, but because the pay stations do get used a lot, I think that we should keep at least a few of the pay stations, but yet I don't believe they are included in this agreement. And we need to, I think, somehow come up with what it's going to cost us to get them. Because the pay stations we have right now, they operate with 3G cellular. 3G is going away. It's not that they're getting old and not being able to be useful in the sense that they work, but they won't work because 3G is going away. And so we need to have new pay stations no matter what, if we're going to have any pay stations. And because they do bring in the bulk of our money at this point in time, I think we need to keep a few of them in our higher use lots. So I don't know how we deal with that, because I know it's going to be a fair amount of money.
Yeah, that will be part of the program they give us, and because the goal is to eventually to get to pay to park or
Text to park.
text to
Right.
park. Thank you.
Well, the motion right now is
and
for him to negotiate a
and
contract, and that can be part of the negotiation.
part of that program
Well, I
will be
realize
to,
that.
some of them will be left in there,
Part of
and
the negotiation.
they will be managed in the states that.
And in this contract, didn't they say that they would actually put in some charging stations for electric cars too, for a few places?
Yes, they did.
Well,
We'd have to tell them where to put them.
well, let's be clear. They have a lot more abilities to provide services to our town than is currently in this agreement.
Yes.
This agreement does not anticipate changing out equipment or buying new equipment. This does not include, the program where we can do away with our town stickers.
Mhm.
This does not include, some of their other advanced features, their advanced technologies. But all of those are available to us when we contract with Pivot because they're additional services.
Mhm.
So right now, we have a contract in front of us that provides enforcement services that we are currently getting from Lanier for the next 3-year parking seasons. It services our existing parking meters, our existing pay stations. It does the pay to park and the park mobile. And it administers that that program with issuing violations and tracking violations and ensuring they're being paid, et cetera, the same services we're getting today. This just leaves us the option to discuss additional services should we decide to execute those options in the future.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
didn't they say, that the charging stations would automatically go in if we signed this contract with them? That wasn't an extra or nothing, was it?
There was no, they said I'm going by memory now, but that part isn't, but they did say that they would do charging stations if we wanted them to, and they would put them where we wanted them, as long as they could be put there. They did say that, yes.
There's all sorts of federal grants right now, and even Surfside had free electric car park or chargers when in by the sundown in that parking lot right there, and there were 3 charging stations. We had them there for 4 or 5 years, and nobody ever used them because nobody had an electric car. So we took them out. So I'm just saying that that is an incentive that they did offer, but that's not a
Might not be something we want to jump into right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I didn't see anything in here that said they would enforce our parking regulations. It's, parallel park in the same direction, and Lanier was doing that. Parking on sidewalks, that was being enforced by Lanier.
Exhibit A, 1A, enforced parking regulations relating to meters and other parking controls.
This is not meters, this is just parking, pulling in somebody's yard.
Mhm.
They pulled up in somebody's yard but going the wrong way. Or they're perpendicular instead of parallel.
That's what the police are for.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
as part of the contract, Lanier used to have from Dogwood to the ocean. And so anything that was on Dogwood to the ocean, they did the parking citations to, unless it was a matter of public safety. And if it was public safety, then the police department were called to issue those tickets.
That would be it. When we put out the RFP for proposal, we basically used what we had in place, so.
Well, but it does say manage town-owned parking meters, pay station, and any additional non-metered on-street parking spaces.
Thank you, yeah.
And right-of-ways are considered available for parking.
Is there any more discussion? Paul, you haven't said anything.
No, I like Pivot. I think this is good for the town.
Okay.
Mhm.
So with no further ado,
You need a motion.
we have a motion, we have it seconded. Mr. Stamey,
Been a while.
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Crucklaw,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and myself is yes. So that authorizes you to go forward with the contract with Pivot.
Yes, sir, thank you.
And the next thing on our agenda is the architect contract.
Yes, sir, contract negotiation. Approve the town administrator to negotiate an agreement between the town of Surfside Beach and Creech and Associates in reference to create a plan for future buildings, for the building or buildings for the town. Facts, the town of Surfside Beach has a need for several buildings, both new and or upfits, to include new council chambers, courtroom, EOC, police department. Creech and Associates is a mid-size architectural firm with studios in Charleston, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. Creech and Associates have had experience working with over 30 municipalities on planning and designing civic buildings throughout the Carolinas. Creech and Associates have planned and designed town city halls, police facilities, fire facilities, and a variety of community service buildings in the Carolinas. Creech and Associates show the ability to propose passive and active strategies that increase town performance without negatively impacting the budget. While it costs money to build a facility, we can plan it without hurting the town or our citizens. Recommendation is that you direct the town administrator to negotiate an agreement that will allow, with the help of council, him the ability to create the needed plan for future government facilities or facility for the town of Surfside Beach, with the understanding that even with a plan in place, no building starts without you all approving it and moving and making sure that the pier is where we know we can pay it off and do what it is we want to do.
Any questions? Do we have a motion for that?
Yes, sir. I make a motion to give Mr. Shanahan, town administrator, the authority to negotiate a contract with Creek and Associations.
I second it.
Okay.
Mr.
Discussion.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
what's the fee they plan on charging us for these evaluation and design services?
As part of the negotiation process, we ask We did not do a request for proposal saying come in and actually do this because we weren't sure what this was. We actually did a request for qualifications to identify who had the skills and abilities to do what would be needed. Once we identify through the council, that's why I put in that little statement by the council of what we need to happen or what we would like to happen, then we could put fees to negotiate fees. If by chance we don't negotiate something or they won't negotiate something that we're favorable to, then contract goes away.
Mr. Mayor?
That's request for qualifications.
Go ahead.
So does that mean that we, as a council, will vote on this maybe again after you negotiate and you get a number? I mean,
No,
if
what
they're gonna
that
come up
means
with-
is we'll bring them in and we'll say, we would like to sit down and we would like you guys to hear what we want. And then we'll sit down and we'll make sure that they understand exactly what the council wants for the future. Whether it is just building a plan that we're gonna leave in place for 10 years, or whether it's identifying one building, whether it's identifying a parking lot, whatever it is. And then they will, once we've done that, we know what we've got, then we will identify the costs to build the plan and to build the buildings if we get there.
Well, but if they don't know that we have two alternatives, one is to build just a council chambers across the street, or one is to build a municipal complex on this side of the street, what is it they've actually been qualified to do? Because I can't believe we have a proposal from them for something. If we're negotiating a contract, there must be some scope of work. There must be some anticipated cost of performing that scope of work.
They were told.
I don't think we should be approving a blank check.
And we're not approving a blank check. I mean, that's not happening. We spoke to, when we put out the RFQ for qualifications, it was looking for people that experience building buildings. I should say planning buildings, planning complexes, and we didn't just want one building because we wanted to get the whole scope. So when you guys decide what you wanted, we would have the skills in place. Once we've identified what you want, then they would come up with a plan for that, be it one building here,
Well,
be it one building over there.
But any kind of request for quote includes, there must be some hourly architectural fee. Any company that is this experienced at doing these kind of things has some kind of fee schedule that says, the senior architect is this, the draftsman is that, the surveyor is this, whatever. I mean, we have to have some idea, what is it going to cost us to do these plans? Understanding that half of them we're going to throw out.
Yeah, and I understand that, but all this does is gives me the ability to tell them we would like to look at what you can do for the plans, and then you guys will say, we want one building over there, we want a police building there, we want a complex, whatever it is, and then they will turn around and come up with, this is what it takes, and this is the skill set that we will use for this, and this is the amount of money that it will cost on each skill set. The request for qualifications is something that's done statewide, and they do it. This is the process they follow, so I don't know what else to say.
Mr.
Making
Shanahan,
rocket science out of nothing.
when they were
Sorry, I
here,
didn't hear.
Making rocket science out of nothing.
No, I'm following the process that the state has, ma'am.
Mr. Shanahan, when they came in and presented to us as council, did they not say they could do either one, a single building, a complex building? It's whatever town council wanted. All we're doing now is giving you the ability to go out and get this company to come on board, and we can tell them what we want, and then they'll give us the scope of what it's going to cost to do this project.
Yeah, this is just
And then you'll
allowing
come.
us to negotiate with them.
Yes, sir. That's the way I understood what I'm reading here. It's just, it ain't saying that we're going to build anything.
And it ain't saying we're using them.
And it don't say we're going to use them. It says you're going to be able to contract or negotiate with these people for what we as the town wants from them.
Yes, sir.
They have not given us a price. I was actually in on some of the meetings when they came in, and give this out to us. They wasn't here to design nothing. They were here to give their credentials of what they could do.
And that's all we have for request for qualifications.
Now we're going to ask for a price range of what it would cost us to do something, right?
And they would give us a list of all the skills, they would give us a list of the positions and the cost per hour, or however they did the cost. And it would be based on what y'all as a council wanted them to do.
So you would put that together as a workshop for council
Yes, sir.
to meet with them, to give them the scope on what we want them to do.
Yes, so we are not moving forward without you guys being a part of that. I would not do that.
You want
So
Mr.
did we
Mayor?
not get any responses for other qualified architects that would be willing to provide a formal proposal to the town to develop the drawings for construction of whatever facilities we wanted?
We did
Whether that's the police station or council chambers or whatever?
We did a request for qualifications, and that's not how that process
And you
works.
got-
That process works by the firms that bid on it, bid probably the wrong term, but the firms that reply to it, identifying their skills and abilities, and that they have what we need in the future. That's the process that we use. It's in our ordinance.
And they did, other companies come in and give proposals at that time. And then y'all decided that this was the best company out of the people that applied to work with.
They had the most experience in beach areas. They had the most experience in the Carolinas. They had done 30 plus municipalities. They were, in my opinion, and I won't speak for the others, by far the best qualified person. But again, can't ask for a proposal when I'm not sure what they want. I just want what we want. I want to make sure whoever we bring in to discover what we want have the skills and abilities to do what we want, and then we can identify what it would take and cost. Nothing is approved. This contract does not mean they're going to do anything for us. They're just our point person right now. And if you don't like them, then we put it out for bid and do it again.
Well, if we have the workshop, right?
Yes, sir.
And we call them in here and we collectively tell them as council what we would like them to do, then they'd be able to give us a price before negotiating the contract, right?
Oh, without a doubt, they'll be able to bring you in a cost of all the folks and everything, but
Mr. Mayor,
that's the next step.
clarify the motion so that we're all on what Mr. Shanahan's saying.
The motion was to give Mr. Shanahan the ability to contact Creek and Association to get some kind of scope on what kind of work or what it would cost us to build a facility, whether it's a town hall or a courtroom or whatever it happens to be. Just to contact these people and get them on board with us to come in and present something to us.
And I would say with either the help or the approval of the council. That way you don't have to worry about me doing anything I shouldn't do.
Well, the only thing I'm worried about is for us to let you negotiate a contract that has no price on it. Okay, and they've never given us a price.
Yeah.
We haven't, and it's like Councilwoman Keating said that, we don't know how much they charge for their architects or how much they charge for their surveyor or how much they charge for that. But if we collectively tell them what we're interested in, they can come and give us a price on that, and then we could.
And we did it this way, request for qualifications, because we weren't sure what council wanted. If it would have been just one building, if it would have been a master plan, we could have done a request for proposal, said this is what we want, and then they would have done it. We'll get in there. It's just because it's request for qualifications, there's another step or two in there. That's all it is.
Well, but typically you're going to make your decision on who your selected vendor is going to be, not only just on qualifications, but on their cost. There may be other architectural firms out there that are equally qualified, but they may not charge as much. I mean, we've got to balance that. So why would we blindly just say, yes, this is a qualified architect, let's go negotiate contracts with them? I'm sure we have other qualified architects, we have no way of knowing if this provides the optimum solution to the town. I mean, we're not building a power plant here. We're building a building. I'm sure there are tons of architects that are fully qualified to build a building. They do it every day. So I just don't understand why we've wasted a year not putting out the RFP that was approved in October of 19, or October of 20, sorry. October of 20 to move forward, or 21, I'm sorry, I'm getting my dates confused. October of 21 to move forward building a council chambers. We never put that RFP out to say, I need an architect, I need a contractor, I need all these people to do this project for us. What's it going to cost us? We have no idea what it's going to cost. We have none of that information, and I'm just not supportive of blindly approving, negotiating a contract with somebody that we have no clue what their rates are.
Before you sign a contract saying, with these guys saying we're gonna do A, B, and C, you will know the rates. Again, the process we used was request for qualifications to make sure we had the skill set. Now, if all you want, I mean, is just the one building and let everything else go, I can pull this. I'll put out an RFQ for one building, and I mean, but that's up to my council. You know,
Well, you put an RFQ out, and you got 3 responses.
Yes, sir.
So if there are other equally competent, they chose not to respond.
Yes, sir.
And you picked the best of the 3.
Yes, sir.
And that's all we ask you to do. So I'm in favor of you moving on. Let's find out what it is going to cost.
Mr. Mayor, I think in October, granted under the previous council, we approved and budgeted and updated the budget to include certain funding to construct a new council chamber over across the street. In January, when the new council came on, certain members wanted to bring the council back to this side of the street. So since we had not taken the approved action to get the RFP out for the single building, we requested that we issue an RFP for building that single building by the new town hall with an option as to what will it cost to build it at this site.
This process can do that.
Well, but that directive that we were given in January has not happened. So I'm not sure why we're overcomplicating what we need to do. I mean, we need an RFP out to build a building.
But we need an architect to do the building before we.
Well, that's right, and that's what's in your RFP.
Mr. Mayor, we also talked about you've got other buildings other than one that have to be looked at, and we were looking for a overall plan for this side of the road that included the police station, the courtroom, the council chamber, and at some point down the road, maybe a new town hall, with the option that they could just build the one building across the road. But we needed a plan for the whole complex, not for one building. You need to integrate. These buildings are all intertwined, and they need to be integrated together, not separately. I don't even know if we ask them about the emergency control room or whatever, but that's something else that might get thrown in at some point. But all this is interrelated, and it needs to be done. And you found a firm that's capable of doing the whole thing and not piecemealing. And I think that's what we ask you to do. That's what I remember.
The only thing I'm having a problem with is the price, and we don't know what the price is. So in order to let you negotiate a contract, we're sort of giving you the thing to write a blank check,
No.
and that's. we need to know what the scope of it is and what they're going to charge to do. And part of it, what you said, is to have a workshop to let council make the decision whether it goes across the street or whether it comes over here, whether we incorporate the police department and do everything that we need to do, or, do the other.
And once that's identified, they will put together a price that they will recommend, and we can go.
Well, what's it
for
cost for them to do that?
That's all part of the process. It shouldn't cost anything until we have a signed contract saying they're going to do it.
And for them to do that, they'd actually have to know exactly what we wanted to do.
I understand that.
Well, but you don't need a signed contract to negotiate a proposal.
But he needs to get them on board to bring them here to work with us. And somehow or another, he's got to get them here. They ain't no contractor or no architects going to come on board right off the bat until you hire them in, till you get them here and try to get a negotiated price.
Well, when they left here last time, they were not happy.
I
could tell
do
that.
not want to bring them back unless,
No, they wasn't happy when they left here.
But again, I mean, request for qualifications.
We still don't.
Huh? Mr. Holder, talk to us.
Well, I was on council when the decision was made
We're not going to hold that against you.
across the road. And that was with the circumstances. We thought we had no workplace to meet at that time. Things have changed. We're still here, meeting here, and a lot's changed from a year ago. So I think we need to work with what we have today and where we need to go for the future.
Okay. Ms. Keating, you have anything else?
No.
Mr. Kickoff.
I would just like to say that maybe what we need to do is bring Creech and Associates back. But before we do that, we meet as a council and try to hammer out what we want them to do as a scope for the project. And that way they can give us a price, because they're still not going to be able to give us a price if we just say, oh, we want to maybe do this and maybe do that. We got to say we want to get a price on being able to do this and this or this, whatever. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
But it's not, I guess everybody up here kind of thinks you're wanting to do a contract, and that's not really.
No.
It's just an agreement.
Yes.
For them to come back and talk to us more.
Yeah. We're not going to sign anything until they know exactly what we want done, and we know exactly what they say it will cost. And then if we don't agree with what it costs, and we've got folks that can make sure we're getting a bang for the buck or the cost is right, then we would agree. Not until. I wouldn't sign anything that was blank.
Well, and what is this agreement? What is the scope of this agreement that you want to negotiate?
That they would come back and they would be the ones that we chose to be the most qualified. Now they will come back and identify what we want and talk about what it takes to get there.
So you want an interim consulting contract with them to tell us what it's going to take to get our alternatives of one side of the street or the other. And then once they come in and they tell us what it's going to take, then we'll issue another contract for them to actually perform the architectural services.
I don't know if it's an interim consulting contract. That terminology is definitely not in our ordinances. What it is we go back and we tell them, you were the one selected to have the most qualifications. Now we'd like you to meet with us so we can discuss what we want, and then you guys will put together a proposal based on what we want. All this was that we selected them as the most qualified.
Okay. Mr. Kinkin.
My son's an architect, and they usually work off percentages because they're doing hospitals. Well, you never know what a hospital is going to end up. Even after you start, you don't know what's going to end up. And so But say for instance, they're at 6% of the total cost, that's gonna be their fee. Because you don't know what you want.
Well, again, they need to come here and we need to tell them, this is what we want.
Well, I agree with
Yeah.
that, and we are not there yet.
No, this is
And I
just
think that's
most
the next
qualified
step,
person,
is
yes.
for us to beat each other up over the head till we decide what we want.
But all we're doing right now is identifying the most qualified people, and I would like,
But
once we know what we want, bring them back.
on that hand, we really don't know what we want, but we don't know how to go about to get there either. So we need somebody that knows more about it than we do to get us there.
Mr. Drake.
I just go back to what Cindy was talking about. We started out in October 21 doing one thing, then we come back and we're doing something totally different. But I agree with what we need to get somebody, and he's the only one to send a proposal back that meets the requirements that we're looking for. So I can see bringing them and asking them to come up with what our plan or we get together and get a plan and then present it to us. But to say a contract or coming up with a blank check, I can't come up with that.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
I can't do that. That's why I
Yeah.
asked to have it restated so that it would be on the record to what we're actually doing here.
Well, if we're going to
Again,
negotiate,
Hold on now.
it says here to negotiate an agreement.
Yeah, that will allow, with the help of the council, to get with them to for them to come up and say, hey, this is what the plan, based on what you want, this is our process, this is our plan, and this will be the cost.
So to negotiate that, and what we're talking about here in your recommendation, there's no money involved in that.
No,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Not at this time, no, sir. And there
No
will
money.
be no money until you guys approve it.
All right. You can even ask them
Oh, I will.
when you get in touch with them, could you not ask them if they're going to, what charge they would be to come and go over this plan with us or listen to our plans? Even if they're a cost star, you could find that out before you even bring them in, could you not?
Oh, yes.
And if they're a lot of money, you can bring that back to council too, couldn't you?
Yes, sir.
Well, Mr. Stamey, do you want to change your motion to include that, that this is a non-monetary thing at this point to negotiate to have them come back?
Do you think that's the way to go, Mr. Shanahan?
I would have no problem with that. We will get with them and we will tell them exactly that. And if perchance they don't want to do it, well, then guess what? We'll go back
I
to
don't
the
know.
drawing
Maybe,
board.
they did not leave in good standing last time, so we'll have to see.
Yeah.
So do you want to modify that, Mr. Stamey?
Yes, I'll modify it to say that you can monetary agree with them, try to make an agreement with them to come in and go over this plan.
Yeah, no money.
No money involved, and if they are, you'll come back to us with a plan to tell us what the money cost is to do this.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a modifying motion, please?
Go ahead.
I would like to make the motion to authorize the town administrator to negotiate a $0 value agreement to obtain information to facilitate the ultimate contractual arrangement for architectural services to construct and build new town facilities.
Second.
Do you think they'll come back for zero?
They want the
Yeah,
job.
I mean,
They want the
all we're
job.
doing right now, request for qualifications, and then they will give us, based on what we want, they will give us the price.
Well, the
That's-
qualifications is what they came in and presented to us.
Exactly.
This is to come in and try to work with us to get us a building across the road or a building over here, one of the two.
Well, that's what we need them here.
Yeah, they have to vote on Councilwoman Keating's first, yes. But again,
Nobody seconded.
oh, no,
Councilmember
Michael did.
Michael did.
No,
Cindy.
she's talking about.
No, he seconded Cindy's.
Somebody
Nobody seconded
go
Mr.
ahead and
Stamey's.
second this thing.
Oh, I'll second Mr. Stamey's.
Well, first of all, we have Mr. Stamey's original.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
sir.
it would have to
Okay.
be-
That was seconded by
Yeah.
Paul.
Right. And then, so we have that, and then we have Ms.
Cindy,
Keating's.
Councilwoman Keating.
She spelled it.
second one. So
I
we
like-
need to
I like
devote,
Cindy's
we
better.
need to vote on the first one first,
we
No.
vote- No, we
Or on
vote
the
on
The
the
amendment first.
on the amendment.
Right.
And
I second it.
I can make that work.
Okay, so we got Stamey's with Holders the second. Then we have Keating's with Drake the second.
Yes.
Do we have any further discussion before we vote on the amendment? All right, Ms. Keating, you want to state yours one more time?
No.
No.
Is to,
I didn't write it down. That's
is
why
to authorize the administrator to negotiate a $0 value agreement with Creech and Associates to provide counsel for the needed plan for the future government facilities.
All right. Mr. Stamey,
I'll vote yes for it, but I don't think it'll happen that way.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Cracklaw,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes too. So now on the original motion, you want to read that to us again?
You won't have to
We
vote
don't
on
do
it.
the
No, because the amendment passed.
The
The
amendment
amendment
passed.
passed, so you won't have to
Okay.
revote on it.
All right. So that is done. So
Yep.
we'll wait to hear from you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Shanahan. And the next thing on the agenda
Kind of nervous.
is the town forensic audit.
Yes, sir.
William
Subject-
Shanahan.
Yes, sir. Subject forensic audit recommendation. Purpose, town administrator will identify and engage an audit firm to conduct forensic audit of the town financial processes. Based on meetings that we've had, there are concerns by council in reference to trusting some of our financial processes. The town does not seem to be trusted in reference to finances by some of our citizens. When the town administrator arrived at Surfside Beach, he requested a forensic audit just to ensure that we were following your state financial policies. Yearly audits do not look at our policies and actual work that was done, different, receipts and things like that. Forensic audit will address review areas directed by the administrator / council. A forensic audit is based on folks that I've spoken to, if done correctly, will probably cost somewhere in the area of $100,000. But then it reviews every transaction for the time period that we recommend. And so I would ask that you direct council or the town administrator to move forward with this process with a $100,000 cap and basically to restore the trust of our citizens.
Mr. Mayor, a vote of council is not necessary to authorize the administrator to issue an RFP. So I really don't, I think this is something that's been talked about several times. I think Councilman Krecklaw has some information that this has been previously approved to be done in the town. So I think if the town administrator feels this is a prudent practice in the administration of the town, it's well within his authority to issue the RFP for the services. Now, once those RFPs come back, selecting the preferred vendor and allocating the funds would definitely be part of a council vote.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see a timeline that we can see this get done to make sure that it follows through.
Mr. Mayor,
By the next council meeting at least, get some type of idea.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Stamey.
I don't see that we need to, forensic audit for no reason whatsoever except to prove to the town citizens that we're not doing nothing illegal. If there's something going on, if Mr. Shanahan has something that's going on and he's really worried about, I would suggest that. But if not, why do we want to spend $100,000 on somebody to come in and just go over our books to prove to people that we're not lying to them? But if he's got a reasoning behind that, if he's got suspicious of something that's going on in our town, then maybe it's warranted. But until he has that, I don't see that we need one. We have an audit every year when we turn in our books. So until he gets something, I don't see spending those $100,000 for nothing like that.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to say that in, June 27th, 2016, there was $50,000 put in the budget to do a forensic audit. It never happened. I don't know why. That's been a while ago. And on February 2017, we had a person arrested that was embezzling from September 2014 through August of 2016. I don't know if it's a coincidence that the audit was asked for in June of 2016 because maybe somebody suspected something or what, I don't know. But I do know that we did have someone arrested. They had embezzled $45,000. It's public record. And it's just, I think that it's not so much that I think anything is being done wrong. I just think that it's one of those things that in a organization this size, it should be done every once in a while. And that's one of the reasons it's going to cost us so much. It's never been done. If you go in the future, another year, if we do this audit and have another audit done, I'll bet it won't cost near as much. And it won't be as thorough probably either. It'll be more of a spot check. But you need a thorough one to start with a clean slate and move on from there. And an audit may show us some things that we're not doing quite correctly or could do better and make it more transparent to the citizens of where our money does go. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm not familiar with a forensic audit other than I hope they would concentrate on the controls and procedures because that's what you really need to have is solid controls, solid procedures. And as far as looking at each check or transaction, that really doesn't interest me. What interests me is that we have the proper procedures and controls. And I don't know that that's a forensic audit.
Mr. Drake?
I think it's time, way over time, that to be done. The financial statement, I've looked at, I've had other people I've showed it to, just asking their opinion of it. I can't follow the thing, and they couldn't either. And had a CPA friend of mine look at it, and he said the same. He said, "What is this? For $25 million and all the stuff that y'all have money coming in and out, and they don't add up." So I think it needs to be looked at. I think we need to look at it and make sure our policy and procedures are correct. We're doing it the way that we're supposed to do it. And go from there.
Well, do I have a motion?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think that it's picking right now to spend $100,000 when we have major expense of the pier. We also, all the things that are happening right now. This is we don't have $100,000 in the budget for this. And so this is going to come somewhere. And we've hit the budget pretty hard this year with the raises for our employees, and we've done a lot. And to take this on right now I think is kind of reckless. And I agree, this should have been done on a regular basis. It should have been done every 5 years at least, but they haven't done that. But right now, to sit down and to spend this kind of money that we haven't got budgeted, you can't justify it. and you can't justify it to the residents.
Well, we have Ms. Keating stating that to put out an RFP, you do not need a vote of council. And we have council sort of split on the other, and nobody's made a motion so far, so I'm going to ask you
What I think. And the reason, well, number one, there's two reasons that I asked for permission to do an RFP is number one, the cost, but number two, RFPs are not cheap. The people that put these things together, they take time, they take money, and they put them together. If it's not something you want, and we have a habit of asking for RFPs and then saying, well, we don't want to do it, we're not going to get the responses that we need. Those are my reasons. I just didn't want to do something that y'all didn't want to happen anyway. So,
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
it's not that we don't want it to be done. I hope it comes back flying colors.
oh yeah, and that's
I really do.
I'm talking about
But-
the RFP.
But if you do the RFP, we got to know somehow, some way, and if you got the authority to go ahead and do it, then you have to lead. You have to get out there and do it, and bring it to us and say, this is what it's going to cost from this company.
Plus, you're making an assumption here on the 100,000. Well, it may be less, it may be more. But
Yeah.
if you come to us with an RFP, we'll know exactly what it's going to cost. And
they
we'll
don't-
be able to make that informed decision at that time.
If they don't find nothing, they don't find nothing. But if they do, they do. And then they may want to go deeper. I don't know.
Okay.
Plus, I mean, do you have any recommendations, or have you talked to anybody on exactly what a forensic audit would entail?
Yeah,
I mean, we all know what a forensic audit should do and everything, but maybe in your RFP, somebody will make some.
Yeah, I've talked to some other finance directors, and I've talked to a consultant or a past consultant on what it takes. And the most important thing is you don't use anybody knows. But we decide, use the pair. If we're using a pair, we look at every single transaction that happened. You follow the money, you make sure it went the way it was supposed to go, and it did what it's supposed to go. If it's the budget, you go through that whole budget. You look at every receipt, every transaction, and we make sure that the budget follows the process that we wanted it to follow.
That's all we're asking for.
And
Mr. Mayor, can I ask one question? Mr. Shanahan, do you have to pick a department or certain thing to do this on? Or would it be overall the whole town? Like, are you're pointing out the pier or the finance department or whatever? Is
It's
that
not-
done for the whole town, or is it done for each thing that you pick?
It's not done for a specific department and say that we can tell it if you want to do it for the peer funds, they can do that. We can tell it if you want to look at the budget for the last year, we can do that. If we want to tell them to go back 3 years, we can do that, 5 years. It's up to us, and that's where the cost comes from.
What would the cost be to put out this RFP?
Actually, putting out the RFP doesn't cost anything. We will just decide what we want it to state, and we will put it out. Again, my concern was we put out an RFP for something that we don't want.
Well,
Not good
here
business.
we have, Mr. Krecklaw has told us that in 2016, they said they were going to do one, they put the money up for it, and then
Never did it.
boom, it
Yeah.
disappeared and never
I
got
have
done.
no idea what.
Poof,
Right.
went away.
Then we got Mr. Holder telling us that, he thinks that, he's not for it right now because what we have, but he says that it should be done every once in a while. It's been a long time, and I don't know the last time that we had an audit here.
And I requested one when I first got here because we hadn't had one in a long time, and it's always good either when you get a new finance director or you get a new administrator, just to start it where
Why would you turn down?
When you came on board.
I told
Or
them that
now-
they just voted it out.
When you get a new finance director.
or another town manager. I mean, there ought to be a good reason to do one.
So they actually, you asked for an audit back then and
When
the
I
council
first
turned you down
with the
for?
other council, yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Here again, it's kind of like the buildings. I think we need, as a council, to decide what we want to do an audit of before we ask Mr. Shanahan, to do an RFP, because otherwise it's kind of well, what do you want done? That's how they decide how much to charge. And you need to specify what your time period is, and what, are you looking at anything specific? Do you want to look at the pier? I think the pier maybe should be looked at. It's costing us so much money that I don't know where it all went, but I guess I trust everybody that it went to the right places. But that's kind of like you trust but verify. That's
all
my
audit would do.
motto.
Trust but verify.
So I don't know. I think we should maybe decide what we want done and then have him put out an RFP.
Will they make a motion?
I don't know what I want done either.
But what
But Mr. Mayor, please, it is not council's job to get this deep into the weeds of the administration of the town. That is the job of the administrator and staff. So if the administrator feels that the town can benefit from having a forensic audit, and he would make the recommendation of the scope of the audit. Typically, forensic audits are an all-encompassing scope. They don't piecemeal. That's why they're called forensic audits. They include everything.
Everything.
You don't have an option to say, well, I want you to look at this, but not that. I mean, otherwise you're missing the point of a forensic audit. They look at everything. So, it's up to staff to decide what is in the best interest of the town, go out for the RFPs, get those responses, vet out the qualifications of the bidders, and recommend to council the lowest qualified bidder to perform the scope of work. At that time, council either decides to approve the spending of the money or not. The council may want to tweak the scope if they feel something might be missing, but it's not council's job to get into the weeds to instruct staff on what to do on their day-to-day jobs. Council sets policy and approves funding.
It's true.
Uh-oh.
True.
The boys are up.
Can you handle it?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, with that, I agree that, if it needs to be done, then you can go ahead and get the RFP. But with the RFP, then it's going to have to come before council.
Yeah.
When we know what the scope is and when we know what it is. But
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
if you know the scope and it's still $100,000, how many people on this council would be willing to pay $100,000 at this time and the way things are right now?
I don't know. We're not going to take a vote on that right now. Okay. Are we done with that discussion?
Can we have an answer by the next council meeting?
No.
I don't know how.
Or you are answering for staff again?
No, I'm asking Mr. Shanahan a question.
No, sir, not you. Ms. Keating answered for staff when she said no. I think that question was directed at Mr. Shanahan, not Ms. Keating.
Point of order.
Yeah, point of order.
I will look at our ordinances and I will look under two areas. Number one, I'll look at RFP. I'll look at professional services. I will figure out which one best suits the needs for this, and I will put it out. But Councilwoman Keating is 100% correct. If we put out an RFP, it takes more than 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
But you'll keep us informed on the progress on that.
Without a doubt.
Okay. Next thing on the thing is public comments, but And this is with town services and business conducted. Yeah, if there are no public comments, we're going to have, we have a comment by the fire chief to let us know what's going on for this weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you, council. Just to give all of you an update in the community, an update on Hurricane Ian. So myself and other department heads, we've been participating in National Weather Service conference calls along with Horry County Emergency Management conference calls. And department heads met with Mr. Shanahan today to discuss the storm. So as of right now, there's still some uncertainty as far as what the exact track is going to be. We should have a much better understanding of what that's going to look like tomorrow afternoon. And I'll make sure that I do daily briefings with you, Mayor, as we go through the next few days. So just to give you a quick overview, the hurricane will make landfall on the west coast of Florida during Thursday. Right now, it looks like it's going to be a Category 4 hitting somewhere in the Fort Myer area. So it's a pretty strong storm, and it is a very big storm. So Ian is expected to move across the southeast Georgia and into western South Carolina on Saturday and Saturday night. Currently, there are no watches or warnings for Surfside Beach. The winds, we are expected to see the onset of tropical storm winds Thursday night, and that's sustained winds of 30 to 40 miles per hour through midday Saturday. And interesting enough, those initial winds that we're going to see are because of a high pressure system that is up in the north. And with the hurricane coming in from the south, it's those gradient winds in between is where we're going to see our initial winds. So we'll just have to keep an eye on what that's going to look like as we go through the next few days. The rain outlook is still 6 to 8 inches and possibly higher amounts along the coastal areas, and the heaviest rainfall is expected to develop during Friday and persist into Saturday. So as far as the town preparations, again, we're having the conference calls. We're keeping Mr. Shanahan in the loop. I'll keep the mayor in the loop. Horry County is going to activate their emergency operations center with a partial activation on Friday. They're going to keep it up all day Friday, and then they'll make a decision if they're going to go into Saturday. As far as we're concerned, we're not going to activate the EOC at this time. The department heads will be having discussions throughout the week. I know some department heads have already started to look at the storm and develop plans as far as public safety. Myself and Chief Hoffman have had some discussion, and we're going to be evaluating the possibility of upstaffing. And then also John Adair has started the initial preps from the public works perspective as far as handling the town with the wind and rain and all of that. So right now we're continuing to prepare just like everyone else is, and we'll keep the community up to date. I know that Robert is updating the town's website, Facebook page. Fire department's updated their Facebook page, so we're trying to make sure that we push out those things to the community. So if they check those social media sites, hopefully we'll have the latest information so they can keep up with the storm. I stand ready to answer any questions.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Robert, do you want to say anything about the fall festival on Saturday?
Yeah, so in response to what the chiefs has said, I was involved in that meeting today, and we all unanimously made a decision to reschedule the Fall Festival, which was previously scheduled for this Saturday. So it will now be November 5th. That is the first Saturday in November. I've been in contact with all of our vendors, with all of our attraction vendors, the bounce houses and all that stuff, and working with them to coordinate and reschedule those activities, those things, and the vendors that we have. I've also been in contact with our bands, rescheduling them, and then pulling any current radio ads that we have promoting it for this weekend. I reached out to them today, and so they're all pulling that and then rescheduling those advertisements, radio advertisements for that November 5th week, the 2 weeks ahead of that. I've also, just because obviously it's a different time frame, I've reached out to some billboard advertisers to try and get some more, because people aren't used to it being there on that time. So I'm going to try and see if I can fit in some billboard advertising into the budget just to help promote it, again, because it is such an unusual time frame. Any questions?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
And now we'll go into town council discussion since we're not going to have an executive session. Go ahead, Mr. Stanley.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. I'd like to thank the people that's listening. I'd like to thank Rob for the Sunday in the parks. I've enjoyed it, Rob, and I know it's over, but it's been good. The fire department, y'all do a great job. The police department does a great job. Our town staff does a great job. I believe in all of you. And from that, I hope everybody weathers the storm for this weekend, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Mr. Holder.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody coming out and those that are online. Tonight's been kind of a spirited meeting, but we got through it. And but I know we want the best for the future, and we've got a lot of things going on. And we've got to make sure that we take care of the pier, all the things, and the other buildings. So I want to also thank everybody that worked this past weekend we had a great event. And I happened to see some people in the dunk tank. I didn't get to see Bill in it, but
He went down a couple of times.
I did see Rob and some other people in it. So it was great to see the fun. We had a lot of fun over the weekend. So thank you.
Ms. Keating.
I want to thank everybody for coming out and tuning in online. As Councilman Holder said, we did have some spirited conversations tonight, and I think that's what being a council is all about. There's never any one right answer to most questions or issues that are presented. So I want to make sure that, we do have a significant weather event coming at us. Right now, it's forecasted to not be as severe as what some of our friends down in Florida may be experiencing, but that's not to say that path can't change, and we might be in for heavier weather. So say an extra prayer for our first responders, our fire department, our police officers, our emergency personnel that will be on duty throughout the significant event. So with that, I want everybody to take the time to be prepared for the worst and pray for the best, and have a good weekend in spite of the weather. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and listening online. Kind of a boring meeting in some ways, but we seem to have gotten a few things done. Boring? I thought it was. I remember the last meeting I asked about us looking into the agreement with for the park,
Baseball field.
Huckabee Park. And I had what I thought was a current agreement, but I guess that there's an agreement that has been made since then. And I would like the town administrator to get us all a copy of that.
We're working on that.
I know. So I just wanted to make it public knowledge, though, that we need to work on that and see what the agreement really is with them at this point in time. And with that being said, good night, and see you all the next time, hopefully.
Mr. Kinkin.
I also want to thank everybody for coming and tuning in and turning us on. I would say this has been anything but boring, but that's just me. I want to thank all our employees. We have a great town. They do a great job for us. So it's a real pleasure to live here. And with that, good night. See you in 2 weeks.
That's great.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and tuning in, and thank the employees, Public Works, and they got a heck of a job coming up with the storm coming through. Keep your prayers for Florida, because they are really going to get hit hard, and it could be us in 2 weeks. Who knows? But just keep your prayers out for them, because they're really going to need it. And we'll see each other in 2 weeks, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Well, with all the storms that have come and the fast storms that we had with Matthews taking out our pier and with Florence coming and doing a lot of damage to our town, it's been a long time since we've had a big storm. And I'm not saying that, I'm knocking on wood hoping that it doesn't happen, but I would appreciate it if all the residents, and those people that are here, watch out for your neighbors and watch out for the people that are unable to take care of themselves and stuff like that. I'll try to keep you up to date. Robert will keep you up to date on what's going on in the town and as the weather goes. Of course, I'm going to put out my Friday morning update, which I'll have a brief thing on that too. But this thing, going back to Huckabee isn't something that we just decided to do overnight or in the last couple of weeks. Huckabee was an issue with us when we had problems that we addressed as soon as the new council came in, when we looked at Huckabee Field and the disrepair it's in and the buildings that needed to be repaired and nobody's paying for them. And, we looked at it. So back in January, we pulled the contract, or what we thought was a contract. And I talked to the town administrator about it. And we basically said, this is not the time to be negotiating the contract just as the Little League season is starting and everything else. So we made a conscious decision that if we were going to discuss this and make any adjustments, it would have to be in the off season. So we were waiting for the off season to come, and now we find out they're having fall ball, So I don't know. We need to do it because our contract, allegedly from what the contract that we had, renews at the beginning of every year. So we need to do it before the January. So the town administrator got with them during this week and found out that they have, we had a 2011 or 2013. They have a 2016 that we don't have. So we need to get all this together and find out what's going on, and we need to make some adjustments because there's a cost to the town that we're paying to do that. We're looking at alternatives. We're looking at ways to do it. And, we by no means are trying to cut out Huckabee and cut out the Little League for the kids and stuff, but we want to make it so that it's advantageous to all of us and that we don't go into debt doing it. So with that, I will try to keep you all informed. You guys having a good evening, and we will see you next time.
Can I make a statement?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in reference to our fire department, I have to thank them. When we had this event this weekend, I knew how good my fire department was. I've heard the numbers. I've had people brag, but I got to see it. My grandson had a seizure and fell out in the middle of that place, and my wife yelled help, and within seconds, it was like ants. They were coming out of the crowds, and they had that baby. They had him down. They had him cooled off. They got an ambulance there, and thank God it was no more serious than it was. But they were good. I have nothing but credit, because if it would have been any worse, they would have kept him alive. There's no doubt in my mind. And so I want to thank you, because it happened in my family now, and so yeah, I like you even more than I did the other day. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.